am beholden to Professor Bhattacharya and Swami Vadananand for taking on the responsibility of organizing and steering this conference. The Institute of Culture of the Ramakrishna Mission has now organized this national seminar, and I have no doubt that scholars present will revisit not only the themes covered in Volume 7, Parts 1 and 2, but will also identify the domains and areas which call for further study and analysis. I have looked at the structure of the seminar. I am taking the liberty to make some observations almost as anticipation of the discussions which will take place. Here I propose to make some comments without following the sequential program of the seminar. Absolutely appropriately, this seminar will begin with the presentation of Professor P.K. Mukhopadhyay, whose contribution in the field of Indian philosophy is all too well known and recognized. I have had the pleasure of being acquainted not only with his writing, but his scintillating participation in the conference held some decades ago under the aegis of the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, and then hearing him in a recent conference at the India International Center, not to mention the fundamental issues he raised in the 2014 C.D. Deshmukh Memorial Lecture on the subject, the fourth great movement of Indian Renaissance. I do not have to mention that the Indian aesthetics, especially those evolved by Bharata, were the subject of active debate in the diverse philosophical systems of India. No study of Indian aesthetics could be undertaken without looking at points of view of these philosophical systems. Professor Mukhopadhyay's paper, A Plea for an Indian Philosophy of Art, will no doubt bring home the fundamental importance of the relationship of the arts with philosophy. The last section of the seminar entitled The Past and the Future. Well, the past goes way back to the prehistoric times, ranging from the caves of Bhimbetka and of course Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. It will be recalled that Volume 7, Part 1 included an article by Sri J.B. Joshi on Harappan art. B.M. Pandey's paper will bring to light new evidence on Harappan seals and ceilings and other inscribed materials. In his text, perhaps, this audience will note that there has been very valuable work done by the Archaeological Survey of India and scholars on new sites which speak of a vibrant dialogue between India and Mesopotamia. This is a field which requires to be studied further by art historians. Volume 7, Part 1 and 2 had a substantial section on the subject of Indian architecture with articles written by renowned scholars ranging from N.K. Bose to K.R. Srinivasan and others. There was a time when it was taboo to look at Khajuraho. At the level of critical discourse, it was Stella Kamblish who placed the temple of Khajuraho, particularly Kandariya Mahadev, as a central piece in her great work, The Hindu Temple, published in 46-47. Indeed, I remember the effort which had to be made for including the site of Khajuraho under the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act, 1958. Since then, very important work has been done on Khajuraho. Devangana Desai has spent a lifetime studying the different facets of the temples of Khajuraho, documenting the dismembered material. She will no doubt speak about this great temple, the Kandariya Mahadev, as an ordered whole, and I am sure her insights will be as incisive as pointers for adopting fresh approaches. It will be recalled that Volume 7, Part 2 comprised articles on paintings, beginning with a seminal article by C. Sivaramamurthy on the Indian painter and his art. Since then, there has been a body of critical writing on the different schools and styles of Indian painting, as already stated in my preface. We endeavour to include articles on different styles and schools, consisting of both murals as also miniature paintings. The Jaina art is a world unto itself. New materials are coming to light, and these have been given attention, especially by scholars, in the last 3 decades. Despite the valuable work which has been done recently, there is yet so much more to be done in the field of Jaina art by exploring further the rich material which lies in the Jain Bandars and other libraries. Needless to mention the names of pioneers such as Hiranand Shastri, Nawab Sarabhai, U.P. Shah, Dr. Moti Chandra and others. Sarju Doshi's work is in continuation of that tradition. An important article included in Part 2 is by Sarju Doshi on manuscript painting, Jaina tradition. Her presentation at this seminar will give an overview on Jain miniature painting 1000 to 1700 AD. Professor M.P. Tiwari's work on Jaina art is well known and has been acknowledged for its very refreshing insights into the nature of this art, its artistic form, its symbolism, and much as going beyond dating and identification of content, schools, and style. I have known his work and have also listened to him carefully in a recent seminar organized by ISC Asia Project on Asian Encounters, Networks of Cultural Interaction. His paper in this seminar is a reappraisal of previous study of Jain art and some observations, jointly presented with Shanti Swarup Chenna. Architecture, sculpture and painting of Assam is still a world unto itself, despite the attention it received by scholars of the generation of Banikant Barua and others. Late Professor Mahesh Niyok was a pioneer in the field of the study of artistic traditions of Assam. R.D. Chowdhury has presented and published papers in several sections of Indian art history on different facets of Assamese architecture, sculpture and painting. In this conference, he will speak on a collection of interesting masks in the Assam State Museum. Supplementing the study of Assamese architecture, sculpture and painting, younger scholars have given attention to the variegated canvas of performing arts in Assam. Pradit Jyoti Mahanta belongs to this younger generation. He will present a paper on viewing the world of music and dance and exploration. Ramamalati Chakravarti presents a paper on the advent of dramas in Assam, tracing them down the century. It will be obvious from the contents of these papers, I would say this in advance, in anticipation, that here are fields to be studied anew beyond Satriya and Ankiyanath. Among the participants is Ashok Kumar Das, who is known for his scholarship on Mughal paintings, especially of the Jahangir period. In part 2 of volume 7, he has an article on the Jahangir Nama. His paper for this seminar is on Mughal and miniature painting traditions of India. I am sure he will share his fresh insights in the Mughal art, having studied this for decades. Ashok Chatterjee's paper is entitled The Future is Handmade. I am already anticipating his argument, which I entirely share. It will be recalled that volume 7, part 1 began with a seminal article by A.K. Kumaraswamy entitled Art in Indian Life. The articles in volume 7, part 2 in the series, in the section entitled Art in Life, are relevant. For more than a century now, scholars and pioneers and those in the field today have argued on the fundamental importance of craft in our life. This is evident from the articles of A.K. Kumaraswamy, C. Shivaram Murthy, Kamaladi Chattopadhyay and others. It is also relevant to note the observations of N.K. Bose in his article on the role of the craftsman in the making of great architecture. Sometimes there is a tendency only to look at sectors exclusively. It is necessary to see the network or the web of relationship between what is called higher art or low art or great art. Volume 7, Part 2 includes articles on performing arts by artists of the caliber of Rukmani Devi and others. In this seminar, well-known artist, scholar Preeti Pal will speak on dance as a form of worship in Manipuri. The publisher's note on part 2 speaks about Thakur's love for the art and of the partnership of Sister Nivedita in the journey of Swami Vivekananda. The Indian artistic traditions are no longer to be the concern of the ivory tower scholars, unconnected with life beyond but life here and now. It is in this context that the paper of Pravaratika Ashesha Prana on the contribution of Sister Nivedita to the history of Indian art, with special reference to Bengal school, becomes important. Her sensitivity has pointed at these issues in a subtle manner. The keynote address of Swami Bhajananda will, I hope, identify the many journeys yet to be undertaken. I hope that this conference will look at the state of the scholarship in the areas covered by the various essays in volume 7 and will give directions for future research. I shall look forward to reading the summing up of the discussion by Hemadri Chatterjee, besides receiving a recording of the entire discussion. I want to take this opportunity also to mention to reiterate that the publication of Volume 7, Parts 1 and 2 was the culmination of a great undertaking of the Ramakrishna Mission Institute entitled The Cultural Heritage of India series, which began nearly 8 decades ago. This volume should be on the shelves of libraries for many decades because they cover many disciplines and will serve as reference material for young scholars. Once again, pardon me for my absence, but this could not be helped because my eyes no longer allow me to make travels. This perhaps is Thakur's blessing, but last or first, it is the spirit of Thakur and the mother and Swami Paramananda which gave me the courage to take on this task on behalf of Swami Ranganathananda, to whom I am deeply indebted at many levels. Lastly, what do I say about Swami Paramananda, who has been a pillar of strength in getting this volume published? I do not have to talk about Sabyasachi Bhattacharya. He is scholarship on modern India, a historian of great eminence, naturally as Vice Chancellor of Shantiniketan, and Chairperson of the Indian Council of Historical Research, and also his contribution to JNU. I am very glad that P.K. Mukhopadhyay and I am very glad that in P.K. Mukhopadhyay and Sabyasachi Bhattacharya, you have a great combination which will give the academic programs of the Institute great depth and strength. Forgive me for the length of my presentation in the absentia. This is not a message. However, more I reflected on my absence, more it became evident that it was my duty to make the connections between the contents of Volume 7, Parts 1 and 2, and the papers which will be presented at this national seminar. Pranam. Thank you very much.